Welcome to my channel, Veterans Legacy, and today, I want you to sit back, lower the lights, and let this story take you somewhere you didn't expect. Because on a quiet commercial flight, 38,000 feet above the world, something happened that no one on board will ever forget. Something that began with a single radio transmission. A call sign that hadn't been heard in years. A call sign the pilots of two F-35s never expected to hear in their lifetime. Ugly 6, is that you? And the man sitting in seat 14C, the quiet passenger, the man who looked ordinary, unremarkable, slowly opened his eyes. He knew the message was for him. He just hoped no one else would. The day started like any other. Passengers shuffled onto Flight 274, a routine hop from Denver to Portland. No storms, no emergencies, nothing more stressful than the usual chaos of overhead bins refusing to cooperate. The flight attendants were cheerful, the captain was calm, and the passengers were settling into their seats. In 14C sat a man who blended perfectly into the anonymity of travel. Mid-50s, worn jacket, a canvas backpack tucked under the seat. Not much to mention. His name on the ticket was David Cole. But that wasn't his real name. Not the one that mattered. He kept his head down, earbuds in, trying to disappear into the hum of engines as the plane leveled off. The cabin dimmed, sunlight spilling across the clouds. Peaceful, ordinary, until the captain's voice crackled through the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been instructed to hold our current position. Air traffic control is managing unexpected activity in our sector. Nobody cared. People sighed and went back to movies and magazines. But David knew, holding patterns at cruise altitude. That wasn't normal, not even close. He glanced toward the window, scanning the horizon. His breathing slowed, his pulse steadied. Old instincts, buried for years, were waking up. Then came the second announcement. Carefully worded, too carefully. If any passenger on board has military communications experience, please notify a flight attendant. Passengers laughed it off. Someone joked about being an expert in Call of Duty. But David didn't laugh, because he felt it, a deep, distant rumble. Getting closer. Then, a shadow streaked past the cabin window, sharp and angular. One passenger screamed, another pointed, shouting, Is that a fighter jet? People lunged for the windows. And there they were, two F-35 Lightning IIs. One on the left wing. One on the right, flying escort, not aggressive, but close. Close enough to see the pilots' helmets gleam in the sun. The cabin erupted into chaos. Phones out, voices overlapping, fear rising. The flight attendant hurried down the aisle, pale. She stopped at David's row. Sir, you pushed the call button. David nodded. Ma'am, he said softly, I'm going to need you to tell the captain something. Her voice shook. What should I tell him? Tell him Ugly 6 is on board. She stared. Ugly? What? Ugly 6. He'll understand. The message was relayed, and the reaction was immediate. The cockpit door cracked open. The captain himself stepped into the aisle, eyes wide with disbelief. Sir, he whispered, ATC is asking if you can come forward. Passengers watched, whispering, some filming. David stood slowly, and as he walked down the aisle, he felt it, like stepping backward through time. Every footstep was a memory. Every breath pulled him closer to the man he used to be. A man he tried desperately to leave behind. He reached the cockpit. The captain closed the door behind him. Outside, the F-35 on the left wing tilted, almost a salute. And then the radio crackled. Commercial 727, this is Falcon Leader. Patch, as through to your passenger. We need to confirm. The captain nodded at David, hand trembling, and handed him the headset. David put it on. Silence. Then, Ugly 6, confirm identity. David closed his eyes. His voice, when it came, was steady. Quiet, heavy with ghosts. This is Ugly 6. The response was immediate, filled with shock and something deeper. Sir, we thought you were dead. David exhaled. Yeah, he said. A lot of people did. To the passengers and crew, he explained nothing. But 38,000 feet above the world, over encrypted channels, the truth unfolded. David, Ugly 6, Harrington. Former Joint Special Operations Air Command. A man who flew missions that never made the news. A man whose unit, the Ugly Flight, was wiped out during a covert rescue years ago. At least, that's what the world believed. But two F-35 pilots, callsigns Falcon Leader and Falcon 2, recognized his voice in seconds. A voice from history, a voice from a mission that broke every man who survived it. A mission no one talked about. "Sir," Falcon Leader said, "there's an encrypted broadcast originating near your sector. Using old JSOC emergency protocols. Someone is trying to reach you." David stiffened. That code hadn't been used since the night the ugly unit fell apart. "Patch it through," he said quietly. Static. Then a voice so faint it was almost lost in the noise. "6. You alive?" David's heart stopped. He knew that voice. It couldn't be. "Viper." Silence. Then, "Didn't think you'd answer," the voice rasped. "I'm down. North Ridge. Need extraction." "They came back." 6. "They came back." David gripped the console. Viper had been declared Kia. Left behind. Now he was reaching out again, using a protocol so old it was practically myth. David opened his eyes. "Falcon Leader, coordinates." "Sir, those mountains are remote. No roads. No runways. We can't reach him." "But I can," David said. The captain shook his head. "Sir, this is a commercial airliner. I don't need the plane." He pointed at the F-35 outside the window. "I just need a ride." Falcon Leader hesitated only a moment. "Copy that. We're authorized. Rear hatch. Mid-air rendezvous at 20,000 feet. The captain paled. "You're not serious." David placed a hand on his shoulder. "Son, you don't know the definition of serious." The crew had no idea what they were assisting with. Passengers watched as the aircraft descended into thin mist. The F-35 dropped position, moving behind the plane. And then, unbelievably, the rear service door was unlatched. Wind roared through the cabin. The flight attendants screamed for passengers to stay down. David stood in the vortex, jacket whipping violently. He clipped into a harness the F-35 pilot had shot across like some impossible stunt. Everyone stared, terrified, awestruck, confused. One little boy whispered, "Mom, is he a superhero?" No one had an answer. David stepped to the edge. Falcon Leader's voice crackled through the headset. "Ready when you are, ugly 6. David closed his eyes. For years, he tried to disappear. But today wasn't about him. Today was about Viper, his brother, his last unfinished mission. He opened his eyes. "Let's finish what we started." He stepped off the plane. The cabin gasped. Someone cried out. Someone else dropped their phone. But David didn't fall. He was pulled like a missile toward the waiting F-35, harness reeling him in. The jet banked, stabilizing just long enough for David to slam against the fuselage, grab the rail, and haul himself into the cramped second seat behind the pilot. The canopy sealed shut, and just like that, Ugly 6 was back in the sky. The rescue itself was brutal. The mountain winds were unforgiving. Snow whipped across the cockpit, blinding visibility. The signal from Viper grew weaker with every passing minute. "Tell me you're still with me, Viper," David said into the mic. A faint cough. A broken laugh. "You always were slow, 6. David felt his throat tighten. They found him on a jagged ridge, half buried, injured, freezing. Falcon 2 hovered above the storm while David fast roped down with gear he hadn't touched in nearly a decade. Viper was barely conscious, bloodied, but alive. "Not dead yet," he whispered. David lifted him over his shoulder. "Good," he said, "because we still have a lot to yell at each other about." They ascended into the storm, the rope trembling against the wind, Falcon 2 fighting the turbulence with everything it had. But when they cleared the clouds, the sunrise hit them like a miracle. Gold across the horizon, 2 F-35s flanking them. A commercial plane far in the distance, circled by angels in stealth metal. For the first time in years, David felt peace. Hours later, when paramedics rushed Viper away and officials questioned David, he answered everything calmly, without theatrics. He didn't want medals. He didn't want attention. He just wanted to disappear again. But he didn't, because when he returned to the airport, something unexpected happened. The passengers from Flight 274 were waiting. All of them. They clapped. They cried. They hugged him like he was family. The little boy from earlier broke through the crowd. "Mister, were you really a hero?" David knelt down. "No," he said softly. "But I loved the people I served with. And sometimes, that's enough to make you do things you never thought you could." The boy nodded slowly. "Can I be like you someday?" David smiled. "You already are, kid. All it takes is heart." He stood up, gave a final nod to the crowd, and walked away. No applause, no spotlight. Just a man with a completed mission. A man who answered one last call. A man the world forgot. Until the F-35s heard Ugly 6 on the radio. Thank you for watching this cinematic story on Veterans' Legacy. If this emotional journey touched your heart, if it reminded you of sacrifice, brotherhood, and the quiet heroes walking among us, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. Stories of courage, loyalty, and the legacy of those who never stop answering the call.